All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. Just listen real quick. This is the video you've all been waiting for.
You said the timeline for Jones, 2 weeks to decide what to do with the title, whether it takes the fight or you're going to strip him. What do you think is more important, to keep the belt there so he can uphold his legacy, or we move the heavyweight division, take the title away from him?
Jon Jones called us last night and retired. Jon Jones is officially retired. Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion of the UFC.
Whoa! Whoa! Jon Jones retired from the sport of MMA, just like Tom Aspinall said. I'm going to retire him without even fighting him. Something like that. I mean, we knew this was coming. Dana White is apparently shocked by this. I can't believe he didn't want to fight. No shit, dude. He's been saying for months he didn't want to fight. Now, for those of you that don't know, by the thumbnail of the video, by the title of the video, what we're going to be doing today is proving why Jon Jones, that's right, Jon Bones Jones, we're proving today why he is not the GOAT of MMA, not the GOAT of the sport. Just a couple of talking points. We're going to go through a video on Joe Rogan's podcast / MMA Guru's channel with Derek from Better Plates, Better Dates, something like that. Fucking more plates, more dates, some shit like that. A guy that's actually like very valid when it comes to talking about substances and banned substances and what they can do. We're going to listen to him talk about the Jon Jones situation and the steroids that he's been taking. So we're going to talk about him being a complete and utter piece of shit PED cheat and why that automatically is an asterisk and you don't get to consider him for GOAT status, because we have plenty of natty champions or natty GOATs like Demetrius Johnson, George St. Pierre, Islam Makhachev's getting up there, Volk's getting up there. You can even throw Khabib in there, even though it's, he's not a GOAT, but you know what I mean? Like, he's natty, and he is a very, very talented and very prestigious fighter. You have other guys that you can look at. Listen, I keep this argument consistent when I talk about Anderson Silva too. Would I put him in my GOAT list anyway? He's not a top 5 GOAT to me. He's not, but the PED use makes him not a top 10 guy to me. I'll keep it a buck, dude. Like, he just doesn't. Like, there are guys that don't pop for PEDs that can be considered GOATs. I'm not going to look at the biggest PED user in the sport's history and act like he's the GOAT and pretend like he didn't use cheating and banned substances throughout his career consistently. He's done it a million times. He's popped for it a million times. Some of his best wins had to be canceled because of it. He's had events moved because of it. We're talking about the Gus rematch. He had to have it moved from Vegas to California because the Vegas commission considered him a drug cheat based off of the tests he was taking. The DC head kick knockout in the rematch overturned to a no contest because he had the fucking testosterone levels of a castrated male and he was pulsing for turinabol, not Clomid, turinabol, and extremely banned substances. It's picograms. We're going to get to that in a minute because he was pulsing turinabol, which maybe you don't know what that means, but when we get into the video, you'll have a better understanding. We're going to have Derek talk about it. We're going to have the MMA Guru talk about it. You're going to listen to a little bit about what they have to say, too. We're going to go through Jon Jones' resume and just absolutely pick it apart. Talk about all the wins that he's had and the asterisks next to all of them, whether it be the PED use, whether it be people that, should have been fighting at middleweight or would nowadays be fighting at welterweight. The eye pokes, the robberies. We're looking at the Reyes one for that. We're looking at, we're going to look at the first Gustafsson fight. We're going to look at the Santos fight that was a lot of people forget how fucking close that was when Santos had a torn MCL and ACL. A lot of people forget. People forget, man. That was my autistic tick. Sorry about that. It's annoying. It's annoying that people will just run to defend. Dude, he's the GOAT. It doesn't matter. He can do what he wants. Hey, buddy, GOATs don't duck their toughest competition consistently. Did it with Francis. We'll talk about him doing it with Rumble Johnson, him randomly not being around when it was time to fight Rumble Johnson. We can talk about it with Francis. And, of course, the most recent, him at every turn dodging fighting Tom Aspinall, saying in multiple interviews, I don't want to fight Tom. It doesn't do anything for me. It's clearly my toughest test. Why would I risk my legacy doing that? Bro, if he fought and lost to Tom Aspinall, it would have been better for his legacy than what he did to tarnish it in the meantime. So, we're going to talk about all this stuff today. We're going to go through that record and pick it apart. Now, if you are a Jon Jones fan, don't watch this. You're going to be pissed off. You're going to hate everything I have to say, and you're probably going to rage in the comments. And I don't care. You can. It does a great job of driving more views to my video. So please feel free to say some ignorant shit in the comments. It'll help more than it'll hurt. And I don't fucking take your opinion. If you think Jon Jones is the GOAT and you think that Tom Aspinall didn't deserve to fight him, your opinion doesn't matter. You are the type of fan that everybody hates in the sport. Ta-da! It's bothersome, man. Fuck Jon Jones. Do you guys know how much I hate him? Well, we can talk about him being a shitty human being, too, because, you know, Jon Jones won't fight Tom Aspinall, but if you put a wig on Aspinall and he goes, sorry, John, I've overcooked the chicken, mate, he would beat the fuck out of him because he would have thought it was a woman, because that's what he does. When his wife overcooks the chicken, he beats the fuck out of her, because, you know, that's what real men do. That's what straight men do. No, when Jon Jones is around a woman, he can't stand the fact that, you know, he's not attracted to women because he's, you know, deeply closeted, so he has to beat the fuck out of them or drive them into a pole or hit them with his car and run away. But, you know, whether it be his wife, him beating the shit out of his wife to a bloody pulp to the point where his own kids call the police on him, that guy we're allowed to call the GOAT. ESPN's allowed to do whole montages talking about that guy. Oh, dude, one of the best to ever do it, man. And you all know why ESPN is okay with Jon Jones doing this stuff and talking about him as a man. It's that woke fucking bullshit where they go, this type of man, the usual suspect, is the one that is allowed to do this shit, and ESPN can't talk down about it. I know I just said something incredibly insensitive, but that's the reason why ESPN does it. But you look at other people that are great. DC wouldn't fucking dare. DC wouldn't fucking dare put his hands on a woman. But he still gets fucking mocked. You have to show a fucking head kick, a fucking knockout highlight of him getting head kicked, turned over to a no contest by a PED using Jon Jones. We have to put Jon Jones on this pedestal. How else are we going to promote a wife-beating, PED cheating, losing loser fuck? How else? The fucking wife beater. That should be enough to pull him out of the conversation, period. That should be enough for ESPN to never want to cover the fucking sport about him. But no, for some reason they love to cover these fucking domestic abusers. Jon Jones, Tyreek Hill, all these fucking guys. They love covering it. They love to do it. And Jon Jones gets away with it for a certain reason. But anyway, we can talk about him getting in a hit and run with a pregnant lady. He fucking hit a pregnant lady with his... She was in a car too. She wasn't walking on the street as a pedestrian and got hit. Tom Brady. He would never. He's a saint. He's a damn saint. Jon Jones hit a pregnant lady with his car. Fled the scene, and she was in bad condition. Fled the scene. You see the pictures of the wreck? It's terrible. That's the kind of man Jon Jones is, though. Khabib can't sit on a fucking flight in an exit row because they're not comfortable with him knowing English, even though he's speaking perfectly fluent English, and not comfortable with him helping people, even though he's the most equipped to help people. But Jon Jones, the good man that he is, he's gonna hit a pregnant lady with his car, and he's gonna drive off and leave her there. Hit and run. We can talk about the other hit and run he just got into. We're not going to spend all the time on this. These are points that you've heard me make over the course of my MMA YouTube career because you know how much I don't like Jon Jones. But the most recent one is him getting in a hit and a run. The police end up at the scene. The lady says Jon Jones is driving. The police look and the lady's got no pants in the fucking passenger seat. Jon Jones gets a call. She left my house drunk. She was 100% the last person to drive the car. I was here the whole time. Probably doing his little head shake, little zest boy. Shit's annoying, bro. This lady had no pants on in the car. Jon gets in a hit and run, flees the scene. Leaves her in the car. Threatens the cop. There's a whole thing about him threatening the cops on a phone call that I need to look more into before I say that it's 100% that it happened. But, dude, like, are we going to sit here and say, like, it definitely didn't happen? Jon would never do that. Jon exactly would fucking do that. The quote was that someone said... There was a quote of him threatening somebody, like, police officers on the phone. I don't know if it was for this specific moment, or if it was for their follow-ups, or... No, he told a person... I think while they were in front of cops, or the person reported it to the cops, that he said on the phone, I can get people to kill you for cheap. Then he has, a drug testing agent last year come into his house, a woman that he gets super aggressive with because he's pissed off because he's probably popping for PEDs and doesn't want to, because he's hammered, of course, because Jon Jones is always hammered. Great guy. Because he doesn't want her in the house and doesn't want to take the PED test. You guys always fucking come in here, get super defensive and aggressive. Typical Jon Jones. You can't say that didn't happen because it's fucking Jon Jones. He does this shit all the time. He's not the GOAT. There's a million reasons why. But let's turn to something a little bit more tangible here. I'm going to bring up the MMA Guru video here with Derek from More Plates, More Dates.
If you go back to his first positive test results, I believe he tested positive for clomiphene and letrozole way back.
Clomiphene and letrozole, 2 banned substances in the sport of MMA in any sport. Tested positive for them.
In like 2016 or something.
Nobody talks about this. Oh, those picograms from 2020, right? Those picograms from 2019, whenever it was. 2 different performance-enhancing drugs in his system, 2016.
The picograms everyone talks about because they use it as an argument as to, oh, dude, it's not even that big of a deal. Everyone's nitpicking at Jon Jones. What about this? What about this one? 2 banned substances. Simple as that. 2 banned substances.
Tell us more about them, Derek.
So if you look at those 2 drugs, one of them is an aromatase inhibitor that you would use to prevent gyno formation usually. And then,
gyno, the fucking act of growing a boob that we all made fun of Israel Adesanya for when he was fighting Paulo Costa because he was clearly on PEDs, and we can tell from his gyno. Same thing we all just made fun of Manel Kaplor for growing a fucking boob against Astu Almabayev for probably being on PEDs. Jon Jones does it, though. He doesn't grow a boob because he used Clomid.
and Clomid is
he
a
used letrozole.
fertility drug you would use to restore testosterone production. Or in women, you use it to aid in fertility.
Why would you need to restore testosterone production, John? Is it because you needed to prove that you didn't actually have the testosterone levels of a castrated male when you were fighting DC? You had to have something replace that? Make sure that you looked like you had normal testosterone levels? Right? You had to restore them? Because you were taking other banned substances that would have made a very, very interesting conversation and report.
Using those 2 drugs back then, to me, seemed like something you would be doing to either, prevent the gyno from what you were using at a time when it was less scrutinous, perhaps, and then the Clomid, to recover, or something was tainted is what his claim was. But we already have, history of him doing this or getting popped for something pretty stupid to get popped for way back in, 2015, 2016.
Wow.
So he's been popped. He's popped a bunch before. This guy has popped a bunch before. So it's not like this was an accident. He had some tainted food. Like, that's what Jon Jones' excuse is. He had tainted food. No, he fucking didn't. He's a known PED cheat and roid user. But everyone loves to defend it because it's Jon Jones. He's the GOAT. He ain't the fucking GOAT when he needs to cheat to beat everyone. We're going to move on a couple seconds here.
After that, he tests positive for turinabol, and then thereafter...
Turinabol! Very, very banned substance that he tested positive for. And then after...
the pulsing. But the thing that's interesting about that is when Nowitzki talks about this pulsing M3 metabolite, he...
Listen to this bit closely. I'm going to replay it. Very important because a lot of people speak on the picograms to say why they think Jones could be on PEDs. They're nothing to do with it. Okay? Very important to listen to this piece of information.
That is, when Nowitzki talks about this pulsing M3 metabolite, he refers to, well, it's not him, he's just reiterating the research, and it's ultimately they use this reference point of Clomid pulsing as a kind of a proxy to exemplify, look, here's a drug that stores itself in fat tissue and pulses over time. So they use Clomid as an example of because they can't just give a human a shit ton of turinabol and try and figure out if this is going to work or not. So they give them this fertility drug, or they've looked in the data and parsed out this information about Clomid pulsing, and they use that as a reference point for look, there's a drug that can pulse over time. But the interesting thing is Jon Jones literally popped for Clomid before, but he's never had that pulse. So he has...
So what they're saying is a drug can pulse over time, trying to prove that the turinabol in his system, whatever is pulsing, it's the turinabol that's pulsing in his system, stuff that he has taken before, proving him to be a PED cheat. So they use Clomid to test that because it also gets stored in fat. But Clomid wasn't what was pulsing, was it, Derek? Go back a couple seconds here.
Saw this information about Clomid pulsing, and they use that as a reference point for like, look, there's a drug that can pulse over time. But the interesting thing is, Jon Jones literally popped for Clomid before, but he's never had that pulse. So he has this turinabol that keeps pulsing, but the Clomid they use as the reference point of a drug that can pulse never pulsed for him.
So in the past, the Clomid never pulsed for him. The turinabol is pulsing for him. So
Jon Jones, the excuse that they gave him about the turinabol pulsing in his system, they never, ever had evidence that it could pulse in his system. They used a different drug that has pulsed before in the system of others to justify why turinabol was in the system of Jon Jones pulsing. Okay? They used it to justify why turinabol was in Jon Jones's system on his PED tests. They
used another drug to prove why turinabol was in his system pulsing. Or it was showing up on his PED test.
He used another drug pulsing to say, oh, well, it must just be pulsing because this other drug pulses. But the turinabol that was in Jon Jones's system is a drug that has not been proven to pulse. And the drug that they used as evidence to suggest why it would be turinabol pulsing, even though it's never been proven, was a drug that Jon Jones had tested positive for years before the pulsing turinabol. And that wasn't in his system. It hurts me how little MMA fans understand this information. It really does, because they always bring up the picograms, and there's a lot more. It's like the tip of the iceberg is the picograms.
But didn't he say that the Clomid was from tainted food?
Yeah, but he's still...
Tainted food, Rogan? Really, bro? Tainted food. Let's see if they had anything else.
Was in his system when they proved that it was just pulsing. So turinabol shows...
Hold on.
What causes something to pulse? But Derek just said it there. He's tested positive for something that they used to prove the theory of pulsing, okay? That wasn't what was in his system when they proved that it was just pulsing. So turinabol shows up in Jon Jones's system. UFC and USADA work together to see if they can prove if Jones is innocent or not. They would love it if he was innocent. I'm not going to say...
So they're using this to try and prove if he's innocent or not. So they use a fucking drug that he's already popped for to prove if he's innocent.
Why? I'm not going to say they intentionally did anything to prove that he was innocent. I don't know what they did. I'm just saying, I'm sure they would prefer him being innocent so they could make money off of him competing. That's just my guess. Okay? To do that, they used an example of another drug pulsing that isn't the drug that was found in the system of Jon Jones that was pulsing to say, oh, I guess it's just pulsing like this other drug. They didn't even find evidence that turinabol can pulse.
So turinabol can't even... Well, you can't... There's no evidence that the turinabol can pulse. But they use Clomid as an example that turinabol could pulse. They said this other drug is pulsing. So that's why the turinabol was in a system. It was just pulsing. But there's no evidence turinabol can pulse.
The example drug they used was a drug Jon Jones took years before that just wasn't in his system, as Derek just said. Crazy. Crazy stuff, but all good. The MMA fans just let them do that shit. Oh, pulsing. It's just pulsing, guys. That was the official statement given. Pulsing picograms. Solo, this turinabol just pulses. How do you know, Jeff Nowitzki? We never really got those answers. How do you know, dude? Because another drug completely irrelevant to it pulsed once. So that must...
Exactly. So he has this shit in his system, but the UFC does everything they can to cover it up with fake bullshit reports meant to confuse viewers.
I mean, this one is insane. Insane.
I'm kind of done going through the fucking PED shit, I'm not gonna lie. We'll get to him looking fat in a moment. But now let's just pick apart this resume. Right, we're only gonna do this for a few more minutes, guys. I'm so, like, annoyed, though. Look at this fucking resume, man. Stephan Bonner. Okay, it's a good win at the time, right? Yeah, he's in the UFC, he beat Stephan Bonner. Whoa, this guy's the real fucking deal, man. Jake O'Brien, guillotine, blah, blah, blah. Fights Matt Hamill. Loses. This is a loss on his record to illegal 12-6 elbows. People love to make fun of these same guys that fucking look at Jon Jones and say he's undefeated, even though on a scorecard, he is not. On a fucking UFC scorecard, official record, he is not undefeated. He illegally struck. I don't care that the strikes are legal now. At the time, it was an illegal maneuver. He illegally struck Matt Hamill, resulting in a loss. These are the same people that'll say, well, it doesn't matter that he robbed Reyes. On the scorecards, he was given the decision, and on his record, that's a win. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. On the scorecard, on his record, it's a loss to Matt Hamill for an illegal strike. And people will look and they'll be like, dude, the Aspinall record is not even good. Like, he has 3 losses, bro. Why does he even deserve Jones? Well, one of the losses, he blew his knee out in 30 seconds against Curtis Blades, and it had nothing to do with a strike that Curtis Blades landed. He just misstepped and blew his knee out. That's one of the losses that you're talking about. He does have a legit submission loss in, like, one of his first 2 fights. The third one that everyone loves to be like, oh, he has 3 losses. Illegal downward elbows to an opponent. He illegally struck them and got an L on the record. So those same people that'll go, there's more losses on Aspinall's resume, man. One of them is from a fucking blown out knee. The other one is from doing the same shit that Jon Jones' loss is from. I don't remember Aspinall getting a robbery decision because he doesn't go to decisions. He doesn't have close fights with guys. He lays them out in a minute. And that's why Jon Jones was afraid to fight him. Brendan Vera, whatever, dude. Like, this isn't really his title reign. I'm not going to go crazy over it. Like, I'm not going to really pick it apart. You got to fight some of these guys to get to the title. He beat Shogun Rua. At the age of 23, he beat Shogun Rua. Honestly, solid win. I think Shogun Rua, yeah, he was 19-4 at the time because he was 19-3 and then he fought Jon Jones. So, yeah, beat Shogun Rua. Good win. Dominates him. Significantly outsizes him, but that's not really a big deal. Then he submits Quentin Rampage Jackson. Takes him to round 4. Rampage is a badass. He's a serious tough guy. Rampage nowadays would be fighting at middleweight. Just saying. Let's look at Rampage Jackson really quick here. Rampage Jackson was so much old, and that's another thing. He doesn't want to fight Aspinall because he's 38. Rampage Jackson is fucking old as fuck. Rampage Jackson was old when he fought Jon Jones, bro. He's like 35, which again isn't terrible, but Rampage Jackson, where the fuck is his height and weight? 6'1". Shavkat's fucking taller than him. A welterweight. We have welterweights that would tower over Rampage Jackson. Rampage Jackson should be fighting at fucking middleweight at best. So he beats a middleweight there. It's Rampage Jackson, but he should be fighting at fucking middleweight. Fighting a guy that's, again, undersized for the division. Lyoto Machida did fight at middleweight. Rightfully should have fought at middleweight. And did fight at middleweight. But ends up fighting Jon Jones for the title at light heavyweight. And Jones destroys him after getting countered a couple of times really well. You know, a guy that's not that great in the grappling, but at the end of the day, he beats Lyoto Machida, but again, an undersized guy. Rashad Evans. Rashad Evans should have been fighting at fucking welterweight. 6 feet tall. Is he very muscular? Yes. But you are telling me that a guy his size right now is not fighting at fucking welterweight. Think of the welterweights on the roster. Dude, Rashad Evans has a fucking JDM ass build. Not obviously, there's glaring differences, but JDM is the size of fucking Rashad Evans. Jon Jones is fighting welterweights out here for his 3rd title defense. Then he gets Vitor Belfort, also a known drug cheat. You know what? Good win. Fuck Vitor Belfort. He's a fucking known drug cheat. Another guy that fought at middleweight, but all right. Then he's scheduled to fight Chael Sonnen and says, nah, we need to move the event. What? Why do we need to move the event? I don't want to fight Chael on short notice. I only have a month notice to prepare for Chael Sonnen. That would be the biggest mistake of my career. Bro said no to Chael Sonnen on a month's notice. He's the only guy in history that got an entire event canceled because of it. He got an entire event canceled because he wouldn't fight Chael Sonnen on short notice. A middleweight coming up to light heavyweight who was non-comparative to Jon Jones in skill. Chael Sonnen is the GOAT. But Jon Jones is the fucking PED GOAT. You know what I mean? Insane. Fucking insane. People forget, man. Chael broke his toe in that fight and Jon wouldn't have been able to continue. He actually might have had a doctor stoppage and Chael would have been a fucking champion. Which would have been fucking awesome. But this guy got an entire event moved because he didn't want to fight Chael Sonnen on short notice. Then he fights Gus. I rewatched that fight specifically for this video. Gus won the fight. Gus won the first 3 rounds. Now, it was very close. The first round was very clear to Gus. 3rd round and 2nd round were very, very close, but both go to Gus. You're looking at this fight, and Jon Jones is sticking his eyes, or sticking his fingers right in front of Alexander Gustafsson's eyes, so Gus can't really charge in with combinations until Jones puts his hands down and throws a kick. And the ref won't do anything about it. So Jon's eye poking him all fight, and threatening eye pokes all fight, and Gus still wins those first 3 rounds. It's arguable. You can give Jones round 2, 100%. There's an argument that can be made for round 3, but watching that back, I think a lot of people will look and be like, dude, Gus won those first 3 rounds. But it's hard to look at a fight that's so close and say somebody's up 3-0. And I think when people think of that fight, they retroactively look at how close the fight was, so they just give one of the 50-50 rounds to Jones. That's what I think happens. Damn, this fight is incredibly close. Every round is incredibly close. Gus may have won each round, but each round is incredibly close, so we got to give one of them to Jones here because of how good and competitive this fight is. That's not how you score MMA rounds. It's not. Gus should have been up 3-0, and then Jones won round 4 and 5 because he was probably using fucking PEDs. A guy that literally didn't... he talks about not training for this Gustafsson fight. He literally talks about it, and then he goes out there and puts a pace on Alexander Gustafsson in round 3. This dude ain't Marab. He ain't running like crazy. He ain't swimming long distances. He is not a freak like that. He is an athletic freak. He's not a cardio freak like that. Jon Jones fucking cheats. He's able to push in round 4 and 5 when Gustafsson gassed out from the amount of movement and volume they were throwing in the first couple rounds. And Jones is fine without training. Give me a break. That's a fight that should have went to Gus. But it's not 100% clear, so you know what? It is what it is, right? It should have went to Gus. That should be a loss on his record, but it is what it is. Then he has a fight canceled against Glover. I don't know. I think it was Glover that might have been hurt for this one, or something happened, but they end up fighting a month later. Okay. He smokes Glover. I mean, he dominated Glover. Good win. This is a good, legitimate win. I'm not going to lie. This is a very good, legitimate win, so I can't say anything about it. Rematch against Gus cancels. Why was this one canceled, guys? Dude, Tapology is the worst with this shit, man. Are they gonna show a fucking reason? I think this was for... was this for the hit and run? I don't remember. It's so hard to remember. But, like, the fights with Gus gets canceled. Then he ends up having to fight DC. Oh, no. Gus pulled out of this fight. Then the fight with DC was canceled. And then it ends up getting scheduled for later. He beats DC. This is a legitimate win. He very arguably could have been on PEDs. Because he got suspended for a year after this when he was supposed to fight Anthony Johnson. Interesting how he starts acting up. And he gets suspended. I'm sorry, this one wasn't the PEDs. This was the hit and run. He's supposed to fight Anthony Johnson and get suspended for a year because he's popped for PEDs. I'm sorry, because he hit and run with a pregnant... I keep forgetting which one's the PEDs and which one's not. I mean, real interesting stuff, dude. Hit and run with a pregnant lady in the car. He's supposed to fight a power puncher, and all of a sudden he can't. They never end up being able to fight. It's interesting how a guy that could have knocked him out in a punch, he doesn't get to fight. Anyway, I told you I'm just going to be shamelessly pushing this shit. But then he takes his year off, right? He fights Ovince St. Preux, wins, dominates. It's Ovince St. Preux. Not a great fighter. Really not a great fighter. Then he ends up getting his rematch with DC, right? Overturned to a no contest because he popped for having the testosterone levels of a castrated male, the Turinabol in his system, all of it. So he fights and he head kicks DC in the third round and gets a finish. Oh wait, it's overturned because he's a PED cheat. Single-handedly ruining Daniel Cormier's career and legacy. He doesn't ruin legacy because everyone knows Daniel Cormier is great. But this is just something that, like, it's really disgusting to see, man. It is. Pops for PEDs, gets us overturned to a no contest. That people will be like, he beat DC twice. No, he didn't. It was a no contest. No contest against DC. Remember that. Then Gus in the rematch. Has this event moved from Vegas to California? Believe it was Anaheim. Because he was considered a drug cheat by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. They're saying, we're not letting you fight here, bro. You just served a 1-year suspension and you have pulsing things in your system. Like, his system's pulsing. This guy can't help but cheat. So he's looking like a drug cheat. Vegas won't sanction the fight. Anaheim picks it up. They'll take the fight, and it gets moved to a month later. He had the event moved. He's had one canceled against Chael, but then he had one moved for Gus. Then the legendary end of his resume here after he beats Gus by finish. Surprise, he, beats him by finish after needing to get it moved because he's on fucking PEDs. Dominates Anthony Smith by decision. Congrats, it's Anthony Smith. You took him to decision. You slaughtered him, but you took him to decision. Goes to a split with Thiago Santos. Do I give that fight to Jones? Probably yes. I ain't gonna hate too much. But Thiago Santos tore his MCL in this fight. And you went to a split decision with Thiago Santos where you can argue Santos wins round 2, which if all the judges saw it that way, he wins the fight. 2 of the judges did see it that way. I'm sorry, no. 1 of the judges saw it that way. If one other judge saw it that way, which was very close, because Thiago Santos landed the more powerful punches, you can give Thiago Santos the belt. But no. Goes to Jones. Jones always gets what he wants. Whatever. Goes to a split with Thiago Santos on one leg. Then loses to Dominic Reyes. This is the robbery of all robberies. Gets his ass whooped. Not even close. The first 3 rounds aren't even close. Jones doesn't have a moment in the first 3 rounds. Dominic Reyes whoops his ass, has Jones running for the first 3 rounds. Jones wins the next 2, and the judges give it to Jon Jones because They don't know what they're watching. One judge gave it 49-46. And then you have even Joe Rogan fucking coping on the mic going, yeah, Reyes might have won the first 3 rounds, man, but technically, I think the last 2 rounds should matter more because it's the more championship level rounds. It's a championship fight. Those championship rounds matter more. Jon, if he wins those 2, should win the fight, even though he lost the first 3. It's not how scoring works, Joe. It's not how it works, Big Unk. It's not how it works, buddy. You lose the first 3 rounds, you're down 3-0, you need a finish or a 10-8. But you don't get that, do you? Jon Jones gets a decision that he gets robbed for. Then he takes 3 years off. He's supposed to fight Francis. I'm going to move up to fight Francis. I need to bulk up, get to the proper weight. Never ends up fighting Francis because Francis is looking absolutely terrifying. And Jon Jones stays in hiding, just tweeting from his couch. Hyping up a fight that's never going to happen. Consistently. Runs from Francis, bro. And the thing is, he said, I need the proper amount of time to bulk up and get to the weight. Then he fights Cyril Gane coming to look like this. Fat as fuck, dude. Jon Jones looking fat as fuck showing up for his fight with Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane just fucking happy to be there. Classic Frenchman. You took 3 years off to bulk up properly to heavyweight and to be a proper heavyweight. To come back and look like this? Yeah, okay, pal. Okay, pal. Running from Francis. Then as a fight with Stipe gets injured. And if he fought Stipe here, it would have been different. But then he waits a full year while Tom Aspinall saves this card by becoming an interim champion by knocking out Sergey Pavlovich. We just need to do the Stipe fight still. So the UFC decides to oblige and let Jon fight Stipe when everyone is clamoring Aspinall, because by now, Tom Aspinall has not only knocked out the most dangerous guy in the division at the time, Sergey Pavlovich, in a minute. Then he went on to defend his interim title before Jones got back in the cage to defend his quote-unquote undisputed title. And Tom fought Curtis Blades, a legitimate, talented, ranked heavyweight that's a dangerous matchup. Jon Jones called for a legacy fight against a 42-year-old firefighter that hasn't won a fight since August of 2020 and had been retired since March of 2021. Comes back, gets tagged up in round 2, and then ends up winning by spinning back kick in round 3. And then he spends the rest of his time going on this facade. I don't want to fight Aspinall. It doesn't do anything for my legacy. He needs to do more. Look at the amount of champions I've beaten. How many has he beaten? Bro, you are the champion that he is supposed to beat. You are supposed to pay back to the sport what we are owed. He is the interim champion with an interim champion title defense, and you chose not to fight him. That's on you. That is not GOAT behavior. All the asterisks next to his name, not GOAT behavior. The shit he did with Francis Ngannou, the shit he did with Tom Aspinall, just dodging him at every tuck and turn. He ducked him so hard, and that's what's going to happen. It'll go down in the history books. Everyone will remember. You remember when he ducked Tom Aspinall? Remember when he tucked Tom Aspinall? Remember when he ducked Tom Aspinall? And Aspinall's legacy is only going to get better and better and better and better and better. And everyone's going to go, wow, Jon Jones wouldn't have stood a chance. It's just hurting Jon's legacy. This guy, GOATs don't fucking hide from fights. GOATs don't openly say, I don't want to fight this guy. He's too dangerous. He doesn't do anything for my legacy. Bro, you are the champion that is supposed to help his resume to make him one of the greats. That's why you became one of the great, because the people before you allowed it. I'm 37, 38. He's like 31. I don't want to fight at this age. Like, Pereira makes more sense. He's 37 and he can't grapple. Buddy, DC was 38 when he fought you and you were 30. Stipe was 42 when he fought you and you were 37. You have been fighting people older than you your entire career. You are not the GOAT. You're a PED abuser. You're a wife beater. You're an in-octagon cheater with the eye pokes. You're a dirty fighter. You're a dirty human being. You are a duck. And you have a ton of asterisks next to your resume. And for that reason, you are not the GOAT of MMA.